You are listening to the Marketing Equation podcast with Martin Shervington.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Marketing Equation with, well, it's me to start with, Martin Shervington, but more importantly, Sarah Hills here. And we're going to talk storytelling. She looks terrified now because I can see it. You can't see it. We're going to talk storytelling because she's been all over the world, particularly in Africa, and got something coming out very soon. And she's nodding. You can't hear because it's a podcast. But we met, 4 years ago? Well, I can tell you, it was pretty much 4 years ago on Google+. And now you've moved from broadcasting into storytelling. Do you want to tell them the background and what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an entirely new video medium in that we are now able to step inside the stories. It used to be that we viewed video, the only way we viewed video was through a fixed rectangle on your mobile device or on your computer in your web browser. But this allows you to really step inside stories with the new virtual reality headsets that are coming out. When I say headsets, I mean Google Cardboard, I mean Samsung Gear VR, Oculus Rift, Zeiss VR1. You've got the Gear VR, I've got the Gear VR, and it's a different way to feel the video. It's visceral. And how I got into it was we were searching for a solution for some terminally ill and aging veterans to allow them to see their World War II memorial if they weren't able to physically travel. And so we stumbled upon VR, and that was our first experience that we created with Jaunt. And after that experience, it was like, holy cow, this is a powerful storytelling medium. And at the heart of what I've done for the last 20 years, I've been a feature reporter, a broadcaster, and an interactive news anchor, but was storytelling. So the lure of being able to tell stories in this medium was huge. And not only tell stories, but we are a startup, so we're a business. We're a social enterprise with two different studios. We have a brand studio, so we do commercial work for brands, anybody who needs VR, that they can use those videos at trade shows to allow people to step inside their stories. But we also have a journalism studio that is our public service mission of our business, in that we donate a lot of storytelling to charities, to causes. You mentioned, we self-funded a trip to Africa to educate people about these individuals who have to crawl on the ground because they lack mobility. So as Chris Milk, said, who's a really well-known filmmaker in VR, it is an empathy machine because you allow people to step inside the problem and see it in a brand new way. And the hope is that if you better understand the problem, that you contribute to the solution. So that's a very long-winded answer for how I got into VR. But basically, it's the lure of the storytelling that led me there.
So what do you think are the components? What have you found that make a good story?
Mm-hmm. The components that make a good story in VR are a little bit different and a little bit similar to the ones in regular fixed frame video. And when I say fixed frame video, I mean video where the frame doesn't move. And if the action is all around you, obviously that, lends itself to a good 360 video. But you don't want the action all around you all the time, because the viewer then has this sense of, well, then I don't know where to look. And they feel like they're missing something. And that's a real struggle for storytellers now in this medium, is how do you direct the audience's attention when they can look everywhere? And so we use it with positional audio. If you watch some of our pieces, you'll hear sound below you or behind you, and it makes you turn your head. So we direct the viewer's attention with sound. We direct it with narration. In our Zambia story, we talk about this woman living low on the ground, and she's feet away from two empty chairs. Well, in a regular fixed frame story, I would probably not say in the narration, she's feet away from two empty chairs. But the reason why I said that is because I wanted you to turn your head and notice where she's sitting, because that has value for the viewer to direct them where to look. So in the future, we'll have technological tools that will allow us to direct the audience's attention. But for now, we're doing it with our storytelling, narration, sound, some graphics. There's a movie called Henry that has like a bumblebee that flies around the screen in order to direct the viewer's attention. All of these things are ways that we're really relearning how to tell stories in this new medium.
I like that, because you mentioned direction a lot, and I know that that's one of the key pieces. It is it isn't story as text, and it isn't story just as video. It is a new medium. It's a new way, and you've got to learn different rules. I mean, I've been playing around. I'm not doing what you're doing. You're really understanding the psychology behind the experience of the person, and it's filmmaking. It isn't only video anymore. As I said, there's something deeper, isn't there? And people don't seem if they haven't experienced it, they're not going to understand.
Yeah, it's kind of the crossover between film and cinema and journalism and gaming and choreography and dance in a way, because your pieces now have to be choreographed. And when you're editing them flat, it's really difficult. You have to edit them in the sphere, as we say with a headset, to really know about where to make those cuts. And even when you make those cuts, it's still just an educated guess on where you think the audience will be looking. So, really blending a variety of mediums. And as storytellers, if we want to be better storytellers, we really need to play more video games, right? Because that's where virtual reality is headed. Right now, these are static 360-degree video experiences. But in the future, with what's coming out with the HTC Vive, where you have hand controls and room scale VR, where you can, physically walk around your room or walk around the video in the future and pick up objects within that video. I had an opportunity not too long ago at Oculus Connect to try the hand controls. Yeah. And, I was playing ping pong with someone on the other side of, I don't know where they were, on the other side of the world, or the other side of a screen or something like that. So the ability to have real presence is fascinating to me. And I've always called it human media. And, here on Skype, we're experiencing a human media moment in a live stream. But the next iteration of that is VR, that we are physically present in another space, either with a three-dimensional avatar, and we're having a living, breathing conversation. There's a great book that's out now. It's called Ready Player One. I don't know if you've heard of it, but you definitely gotta read it. It's by that's
sitting on my desk.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's too funny. But by Ernest Cline, and it kind of gives you a glimpse into what the metaverse is. And the metaverse, as I'm sure your listeners might have heard the term, but it's the internet that you can step into. So if our internet is no longer going to be, our online world is no longer going to be a flat 2D world, it's going to be a three-dimensional world that we step into with these headsets, then by golly, our video content also needs to be representative of that fact and be spherical and immersive as well. So what we're doing with Story Up is essentially future-proofing our content by shooting it in a way that will allow people to consume it, in these immersive environments. And you don't need a headset in order to view our videos. You can view them on Facebook 360 and pan around the screen. You can view them on YouTube and pan around the screen in your browser or on your mobile device. But the best, most immersive way, obviously, is viewing it in a headset.
What do you think brands need to be paying attention to? Do you think they should all rush out and go, right, we want to get into this and start creating content? What's the first thing that they should look at?
Yeah, they should all rush out and hire us to create their immersive experiences. Yes, they should. This should definitely be on their radar if they have the budget. VR is more pricier than a regular video production shoot. And here's the reason why brands need to be paying attention, because there are studies out that show the video metrics, and we're seeing this in the demos that we do, are, really kind of, they are compelling as far as the future goes, because of the time that people spend on the content. Time spent on content for a video marketer is a very valuable metric. So it increases the amount of time spent on that video content by 5 times. And this is a study from Immersive Video. It increases the likelihood of sharing by 6 times, and it increases the frequency that you'll come back and view it again by 6 times. So what video marketer would not want that kind of metrics? And the reason why that people are in there so much longer is because there's so much more to see. And after they watch it, it's not uncommon with some of these 80 and 90-year-old World War II veterans that we're working with, taking them to see their memorials, that they'll take off the headset and they'll say, can I watch it again? Because they thought they missed something when they had, the opportunity to look everywhere, which is absolutely what you want. You want someone to watch your video more than once. And we're working on some case studies with our with our marketing partners in order to flesh that out, because that's anecdotal evidence that we're seeing in person on the demos that we do, and also on some of our online metrics. Brands really should be paying attention, because it's another way to allow people to step inside your story. Instead of handing out pins at trade shows or something like that, we can create a piece of video content. And with Google Cardboard, a $15 device, it deploys on an app, and you can allow people at those trade shows to step inside your story. We just created an experience for an aircraft company in town, and it allows them to save on jet fuel of taking people up in their planes, because they can pop on a cardboard on their face. They can view our story that allows them to feel what it's like to fly on the nose of a plane.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of video content that simulates reality, and for a brand, it's really valuable for them.
Yeah. And I think that one thing for people to realize, it's almost like the cardboard experience is entry level, isn't it? And it's great, and it really does give you a good idea. But then you take the step up and you look at something like the Gear VR. But when you get to the Oculus and the new units that are coming out, which are tethered, the ability for you to have recorded and for people to see what you've recorded in such greater detail, it is almost a stepping stone, I feel. And people aren't. What I'd say is, if they've only experienced cardboard, realise there's a lot more, and there's a lot more we say about presence and intimacy, really, with the storyline that you can get.
Yeah, cardboard is really the gateway drug into VR. It just scratches the surface. The higher resolution experiences are obviously with the Samsung Gear VR, which is a great option for a headset, because the resolution is higher. But I mean, this is the Merge VR. This is a cardboard-like VR set, but it's hypoallergenic. So when you do demos and things, you can wipe it down with a wipe. There are hundreds of headsets coming out all the time. LG just announced this week that they put out a headset. All of these mobile phone companies are jumping into VR, and we deployed a cardboard first because that's where all of the eyeballs are. Obviously, cardboard is deeply connected to YouTube, and on your Android device, you can view immersive videos on cardboard on YouTube. iOS, we hear is coming. We hope it's coming. It's been a long time. And when that comes, I think you'll really see a lot of individuals using YouTube as a platform to view cardboard immersive videos. But the barrier to entry with Oculus, of course, is that you need a special kind of PC in order to run it, and not everybody has that PC. Same with the Vive.
Yeah.
But with mobile VR, you just slap your phone inside one of these headsets, and you can walk, around your room if you wanted, or you're not tethered to anything. You can be on a plane, in a hotel room, or anything like that. And so for marketers, that's what we're finding, that that option has greater value for brands, at least, to deploy to cardboard first. And then we do Gear VR, and then Oculus.
Yeah. So it's about accessibility, isn't it? We know the amount of units that are there, and as I said, price point's good. Let's talk a little about YouTube, a little about Facebook Live, and about storytelling for an individual, because we can see the way it's going is almost your life is always on kind of thing. To start with, there'll be rooms. This is what I think is going to happen, is there'll be rooms in people's house that they'll have a 360 rig, and it will be the broadcast room, as we are kind of now. I mean, we're on Skype. Hangouts on Air is where we met Sarah. I mean, we can see the evolution. I mean, that was 4.5 years, 4 years ago. So what do you think is going to happen in that live streaming realm? How does it relate again to storytelling? Because we're all storytellers in this marketing space.
Yeah, and I think it's already happening. If you look at what companies like Altspace VR.
Yeah, I've been playing around in Altspace. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's essentially Hangouts, in VR, except you're behind an avatar and you don't have arms yet. But all of that's going to be coming, and that's one of the things that we're playing with is placing our content inside those spaces and using it as a broadcast venue. So. Human media again,
Yeah.
evolution. We're in the live streaming phase right now, and the future is that VR space and doing broadcasts in virtual reality. that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
What was your question?
But it's also a continuation, isn't it? And we can see that there's almost a turning inwards where we're going to VR and we can see our hands and I think it was you were talking about we'll have the Tesla suit before too long, right. Which you can feel the experience. So you can feel somebody giving you a hug and things. Again, from Ready Player One, I think that was, wasn't it? But there's also the other aspect, which I think is that we'll be in the real world and we'll stream that back, and people will experience that in VR. So not only the avatar, I don't know if you're seeing that, but we haven't got it yet. But YouTube 360 Live, I just look and go, wouldn't that make sense? But the cameras have to be good enough.
Yeah, the cameras and the bandwidth. And if you saw like the presidential debate, any of the coverage about the presidential debate, there's a few different companies. NextVR is doing some pioneering work with 360 Live, and also IM360, which is a great company out of Canada that we've done some work with, who's also tomorrow actually on Good Morning America. They are doing a live stream from a crater somewhere. Yeah. And so the bandwidth, like here in our community in Columbia, Missouri, in the Midwest, the Silicon Prairie, isn't necessarily ready for live VR because we don't have that kind of Wi-Fi that we're able to access it. But hats off to those people who are just plowing forward and really trying to push the envelope to make it happen. But YouTube 360 Live, that would be totally amazing. And the cameras, like with the Theta, the Ricoh Theta, using those as live cameras. Not all the cameras have to be broadcast like a commercial grade multi-camera, 6 to 16 camera arrays. They can just be, one camera with 2 fisheye lenses, and there are several of those that are out. Yeah. And people are already experimenting with YouTube 360 Live, especially at a lot of the VR conventions. They have cameras up, and you're able to see, all of the floor. I think 3D 360 is a little bit difficult because and less pixelation because viewers perceive that 3D. They don't know how to perceive depth yet in video. So you put a headset on them and they see that, and they say, well, it's blurry. It's kind of blurry. And it's like, no, that's not blurry. That's depth. And so in live, that's even more difficult when you're viewing it live, and you also have to count for 3D as well as a spherical picture.
There's going to be I like talking to you because there's a lot of technical stuff that you've been going through and learning about what you can be doing now, knowing what's coming in the future as well. And that's part of it, isn't it? Is it because it is now? Brands, you can do this now. There's no need to wait.
Yeah, no, not at all. You don't have to wait till the headsets come out because you can view spherical video within the web browser, as I mentioned, and we have had to learn a lot. We had to learn a whole, last 6 months, that's all we've been doing. Learning a new way to shoot, a new way to edit, a new way to tell stories, a new way to try to get brands to understand the value of this video, meeting new companies. It is, we're at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, and there are no rules, which is kind of fascinating in that everyone is trying to write the rules and figure out what they are. I know just last year I was at a panel, and I was one of the panelists said, well, you can never move the camera in a 360 shot because you'll make the person sick. You just can't do it. And I remember thinking, I'm going to write that down because I don't think that's right. I think you can move the camera. You just have to move it in a way that it's either, up or down, not necessarily horizontal, or move it slowly in a way that you don't make the audience sick. But, all those things that, people are saying, well, we can't do this in with spherical video, and you're finding that you can. You just have to do it in a different way. And then once you create the story, we always share it with some of the people, in our building and say, does this make you sick? Does it make you feel, weird or anything like that? Because if it does, then we go back and we retool the video, we slow it down, either take out the movement or change the movement in a way that there isn't that parallax issue for people.
It makes Hangouts on Air just let it look like what a simple tool. I mean, that's obviously where you really stepped forward and were showing what you could do with that and pushing the boundaries with that. And so many of us have played with that. I think the considerations, it would be lovely when you've got that playbook and then you can send it over to me and give it to everybody else, because you are right at the front again of what's going on. And I feel we don't know what the rules are, and I think that's a great opportunity because you can stand out. You can get it right, and for those companies that are looking, and we'll give everyone your details in a second, it's not easy. This is not easy. And the other side is, I mean, if you look at the quality of the content, it's really good, isn't it? So people have got to put together something that isn't just, hey, we've got VR. We've got VR that adds value to your life, and you're going to want to be in there for 3 minutes and then tell your friends about it and try it again. So there's a lot of parts, isn't it? You need the story and you need the technical competence to put it together.
Yeah, and I hope in this quest to master the technical things, which is what we're all trying to do now, that we don't forget the story. And a lot of a lot of companies, and the first thing, and we were guilty of this too. The first thing you do is create your first experience, and it's just like a minute video of a pretty scene, and you're like, ta-da!
Yeah.
And there's no story at all.
Yeah.
So that's what our expertise is that we are immersive storytellers, and we have the ability to find those compelling stories, put them in a way that in VR that people can understand them, and that's our strength. Our strength is story.
Cool. So the last couple of bits, and then I'm going to let you go and do some work. Chris Milk, you mentioned Chris Milk, and my first story, I think, in VR was the evolution of verse.
Mine too.
Is it? That's amazing. It's amazing.
In my car, and watching it, and I'm holding on to the side of my door handle because the train's coming towards you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I was in the parking lot. I'm sure people are like, what is she doing? In there, because literally I gasped. I'm giggling, and that is still my all-time favorite VR experience.
We won't spoil it for everyone, but it's different to what anything you could ever imagine. Look down when you see the things that are around your feet. That's all I can say, and it's magic. The other one I wanted to talk with you about, you mentioned Jaunt and Other Space, I think, because it's different, but it has a fixed point where you're the camera, essentially, and people are coming and talking to you from different angles. What it did is showed me, it was almost, it's narration and storyline. I used to write film scripts, I don't know if you realise that. So I was into that from a very different perspective. But the first one I mentioned, The Evolution of Verse, was partly animated. It's animated, really, isn't it?
Yes,
and then
CGI.
Other Space. Have you tried Other Space from Jaunt? You've probably tried the others. It's one. If you haven't tried it yet, you try it. But it showed that a fixed point allowed you, and the other one that did it was Zoolander 2 trailer. Exactly the same sort of principle with 4 different things, and you're forced to look around and get the angles. But it showed the medium. It showed that it wasn't just about you being in 360. There's something that changes in your perception of how a story can be told, because it's far more complex.
And it gets you to turn your head all the way around the screen. There's also a really great 360 experience called School of Rock as well. And, just combining music in all different angles. And, you're starting to see the segmentation of these experiences that, okay, now I can look everywhere and you have control over it, to the experience as well. Okay, this is a story, and we're going to direct you onto some of those different places that you can look. So it's really fascinating to see all the different kinds of VR that are out there, and what storytellers might be able to do with the medium to increase engagement levels, to create a sense of empathy, and tell stories in new ways.
And I'm going to give you one, if you haven't seen this yet. This was mental. Unicorn Island.
Unicorn Island.
That was Jaunt. Oh,
yes.
I'm not. If you haven't seen it, Sarah, I want you to text me when you watch it and tell me what happened at the end. Is in your experience. I'm not going to spoil it. And if anybody listens to this that says, "Oh, what's going?" I won't tell you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you if I laugh or I cried or anything. You have to. But the reason being, after you've done it, come back to this. What I talked about was an experience about animation, and then I talked about an experience about a fixed point storyline, and then I've mentioned about Unicorn Island. And the reason why is that you can do things in that space that you could never do in reality, that you're in it. And as I said, I don't want to give the punchline, but it is so amazing that there's a shock to consciousness that happens. And
that one just came out.
Yeah.
1st of February.
So I see. I'm pretty geeky on this. So
you're ahead of the game. That's great.
Yeah.
And John is creating great stuff.
Yeah, they are.
Steve is creating great stuff, and Story Up as well for journalism.
Well, how can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can go to story-up.com. And that is our website. It lists some of our, recent experiences. If you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, we just released an experience today about what it feels like to have a stroke. So we step inside the story with a family that had experienced basically their loved one just slip away. So we're able to simulate with immersive images, what they don't see, what they don't hear when they're experiencing that moment. You step inside their MRI and feel the story in a whole new way. And the purpose of that is the hope that you're better able to recognize some of those warning signs and have empathy for some of those people who have experienced that. And on story-up.com, you'll see all of the things that we created, and our Zambia experience will come out in a couple weeks, and it immerses you inside the bush in Africa, and you see these individuals crawling towards you because they don't have mobility. And it's all about, if there was someone in your room right now who was crawling towards you on the floor, you would stop and see what you could do to help them. But because they're in Africa, there's that disconnect. However, with virtual reality and immersive video, we can place you in Africa, and it can be like those people are just inches from you, and create that sense of empathy. Perhaps that if you understand the problem, that you will be better able to contribute to the solution.
Yeah, it's charities and causes and other things, and there's a call to action, isn't there? That's the thing. So, last bit, I ask everybody, and I should tell you ahead of time. This is the Moxon Equation. So, if there was an equation to storytelling, so you haven't prepared, what would it be off the top of your head?
If there was an equation to storytelling for immersive storytelling specifically?
Oh, I'm going to let you decide.
I think it's a beginning, a middle, and an end, which is the age-old equation of story. And virtual reality doesn't change that. Stories still have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But with, in VR and the ability to choose different points within that, sometimes that story matrix or that story equation has changed in that you have different choices to choose from, different decision trees that you can go on, choose right or left. So then that story equation is a beginning, a middle, an ending. Oh, you want to go back to the beginning? And then to the beginning and the middle and the end again. So what immersive storytelling does and VR does is upsets that story equation to be that stories are no longer a beginning, a middle, and an end. The viewer has the opportunity to choose their own adventure, if you will.
That's it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah Hill from story-up.com.
Right. On Twitter, we're on @StoryUp Studios, and we're Story Up Studios as well on Facebook as well. So follow us. I'm on Google+. We do Hangouts a lot with content creators to try to learn and to try to all educate. We did one not too long ago about 3D audio. We would love to see more individuals watch, interact, and share some of those Hangouts too.
And in terms of work, because we might have people from all over the world, you'll travel anywhere.
Yeah, we were in Africa not too long ago, looking at India for a project, and then we'll likely be headed back to Nigeria this June to do a story as well. So yeah, we can be in the UK for any of your brands that are interested, and again, that's our expertise is story.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah Hill. That was the Moxon Equation. I'm Martin Shillington. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Equation podcast, brought to you by plusyourbusiness.com and effective.fm.